Hello, 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 and welcome to a whole new season of When the Heart Leads. I am your host, Dr. Catherine Hall Newberg, and I am ecstatic to be connecting with you all in this way again. As you know, if you've been following my work, I had a long run of When the Heart Leads, and I took some time to step away from it for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons was that I brought forth a new book. So if you haven't checked it out yet, I really recommend looking at it. It's called Aniata Speaks, A Tale of Creation as Told by the Fae. And there's a lot of really deep wisdom in this book. And it really took all of me to bring through. As I told a few people, I entered really fully into the portal of this book, and I couldn't really lift my head for any other thing other than kind of basic things. Um, so that happened. That came out in March. And then I've had the absolute honor and privilege of working with other authors, record keepers, wisdom keepers of their own, of the new earth that's arising. And I've had an absolute honor of working with some of those authors to bring their books through. And I still do that, but I've also been honing my processes with Books of Eden to do that with authors. So a lot of stuff in flow since I last connected with you all. And the other thing is I put out a weekly Substack called Aniata Speaks, and you get it's an extension in some ways of the book with the wisdom of Aniata, who's a like an ascended being who I work with. She offers her wisdom each week to kind of questions that are coming up. So that's in the Substack. So I've been regularly publishing that passage. I call it a passage every week since November. But I had a nudge from someone who asked about the podcast, and I thought, I am getting a lot of other ideas, a lot of other messages, and I've been kind of trying to write them up like a book, and it just wasn't working as a book. And I thought, this could be a really great way to share some of the stuff that's coming through in a more just maybe a more casual way, you could say, because with Aniata Speaks, it's very much about the wisdom she's bringing through, and with When the Heart Leads, we can really talk about some practical, down to earth things that are really coming up. And it's not that Aniata doesn't offer practical and down to earth wisdom, because she really does. But oftentimes it's coming from kind of that vast, expansive place of deep and high consciousness that really opens to a whole other kind of experience. And in When the Heart Leads, there's just a little bit more. It's more of like a conversation with you. So we're here, we're back. So it's great to be back. And I've got Aura, my cat, who I think joined us a few times before. Or would you like to say hi? You might hear her in the background a little bit. So we're starting a whole new season of When the Heart Leads, and my intention is to put one out at least once every 2 weeks, possibly more often. And I'm starting this season with a series, and I'm calling it the Principles of Joy series, because this was one of those things that I kept having: principles of joy, what it means to be joyful, what it means to invite joy into your life, what it means to live joyfully, even in those times when it feels like everything is going wrong, right? What does it mean to turn toward joy? Without denying, the deep testing or the initiations around us, right? And what kind of life does that begin to create? And so I was really thinking about that, and I was writing it up as a book, and I'm feeling like it really lends itself a lot better to a podcast series. So we're going to go through the principles of joy. As of now, I have 4 of them. So each podcast episode will be oriented around one of those principles for this first series. So in a moment, I will reveal the first principle of joy that I've been sitting with. But I do want to mention that you'll notice a few changes with this season of When the Heart Leads. One, it's going to be a lot more low maintenance, you could say. Before, I would do all the audio video editing. I would make sure that there was like a theme song to begin, and there's like all these slides to kind of open up into it. But because I've got, the books and supporting the authors and the Substack, I won't have that much time to put into all of the extras right now. So it's really just going to be me speaking to you in this way, and so you'll get the audio and the video. Another difference is that you'll notice the episodes will probably be a little shorter, I'll get kind of straight to the point more so, and then kind of duck out. So most likely the episodes are going to be closer to 15-20 minutes. So you'll notice that as well. And then I will be definitely on YouTube, definitely on Substack, and most likely on Spotify. I might not be on Apple Podcasts this time because that's kind of an extra step. So, but definitely you'll find me Substack, YouTube, Spotify. You should be able to find me in those places. So, all right. Excellent. I'm so excited to dive in with our first principle of joy. And Aura is here. Aura, say hi to everyone. She is the first principle of joy. Okay, just kidding. I actually have one, but yeah, she's definitely a part of it. So, all right, are you guys ready for the big reveal? First principle of joy. Take a deep breath and receive it. First principle of joy is my joy is essential. Okay. What does that mean exactly? Right. And why did I feel when that landed with me, when I really started to claim joy in my life? Why did that land with such strength? Like, why did that just go right in? Because you might be already there, right? You might be thinking, well, of course, joy is essential. It's joy is, one of the reasons that we live, it's essential. But if you're like me, it took a really long time and a really long period of claiming self-worth to be able to say that something like joy is essential. Here are some things that I had thought it was. And these were like conditioned beliefs that I had around joy that kept stopping me at that threshold of really claiming it, right? So I had thought maybe joy is frivolous, or joy is superfluous, or joy is not practical. I can't be joyful and get things done, right? I can't be joyful and responsible, all those things. So I would think it's frivolous, it's superfluous, it's impractical. In my doctoral research on workplace burnout, I often found that things like joy were the first things to be jettisoned. When there was a crisis, when there was a crunch, when there was something that came in that was unexpected, right? Joy was the first thing to go out the window, and we got really serious and we got really into problem solving mode. And I totally understand that, and I still get that way. And sometimes that is, a really appropriate response, especially if it's like a crisis in the moment. But joy is essential. So there's some questions here, some reflection questions. What would happen if joy was non-negotiable for you, as non-negotiable as basic needs like breathing, food, shelter, and love? What if joy was placed into those categories? What would that change? What would that change for you? What kind of movement on the inside would you need to have to be able to claim joy in that way? Oh yeah, other as I'm reflecting on this, other things that come with joy is selfish. It's selfish for me to seek joy when other people are starving, other people are sad, when there's so much crisis in the world. Or when other people need me, it's selfish for me to prioritize joy and things that bring me joy, right? I mean, is this stuff coming up for you? Because, oh my gosh, has it come up for me? So this is a place of contemplation, a place of reflection for you. This is the first principle of joy. It is essential. it is essential. I've heard some people speak of joy like the subtle bodies are fed on joy. So your spirit breathes through joy. When you are filled with joy, you're nourishing parts of yourself that you can't necessarily see, but that are necessary for you to be living in the way that you deserve to live, in the way that you're worthy of living, in the way that you came here to live. Right. So prioritizing the things that bring you joy, it's not selfish, it's not self-indulgent. Consider this permission. If you needed permission, I'm giving you permission, right? It's not frivolous, it's not superfluous, it's not impractical, right? Joy is essential. And oh my, someone doesn't know that I am doing a podcast, so let me quickly turn off my phone. Okay, we're back. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, so joy is essential. Where was I? So to bring this into something practical, right? Some practical things. First, I would say spend a moment just breathing with that idea, right? Maybe you've introduced this idea into your life before. Maybe you've written it off a little bit, or you've forgotten, or you've strayed from it, right? Or maybe it's at the center of your life. I don't think this is something you can contemplate too much, right? So take some time first to really hold that. Like, don't skip over it. Take a minute to really bring that into your heart. My joy is essential. My joy is essential. Right? And all the things that might bring up, all the resistance points, it might bring up all the thought patterns, it might bring up, because it certainly did for me a lot, right? This isn't something necessarily that you're going to master, and maybe you will. That would be great. Tell me how you do it if it is. But it might not be. For me, it's been a process of years of claiming this, right? And this was what I realized was the first step, was understanding that my self-worth, really bringing my self-worth to that point where I could claim my joy as essential. So that's your first thing. If that mantra doesn't work for you, maybe pick one that does. You know, my joy is a part of me. My joy is who I am. I deserve joy. I deserve joy, like that healthy sense of entitlement. I deserve this. And then for something practical, let yourself sit with, maybe write down or list or make a voice recording of the things that bring you joy. And they do not have to be expensive, right? These do not have to be, maybe they are, and that's great. You know, that's great, but maybe they're not, right? I know that for instance, I went and adopted Aura. It wasn't necessarily the most practical thing in the world for me to do, right? Rationally, I was at a point where it probably didn't make a lot of sense for me to introduce a cat into the household. But I had been writing off the desire for a cat, the need for a cat, the companionship. I'd been writing it off as impractical, and I'd been writing it off as something frivolous that wasn't necessary. And one day I just listened to the voice, and I went to the shelter, and there she was. And she has been the most hilarious companion, the most wonderful companion. When I was writing my book, Learning How to Speak, she was always next to me, right? Sometimes she'd be a little sphinx right here next to me. And she's just been the most incredible source of joy in my life and laughter. And I really listened to that need. And I did not for 1 minute regret it. I was really ready to let that be important, right? Not something frivolous. Maybe what brings you joy is to be surrounded by beauty or color, right? Paint a room, you know, go for it. Paint your room, or paint an accent wall, like that color, that crazy color that you have been thinking about, but you didn't think it was practical, or it wasn't the time to just do it, right? Or maybe something that brings you joy is to adorn yourself, right? in something beautiful. Maybe I'm not just speaking to the women here, but really maybe sumptuous fabrics and colors, and get a haircut. Let yourself get a haircut. It doesn't have to be a huge gesture, right? Or it could be just taking time to sit in the sun for 5 minutes, and not having it be another thing on your to-do list, but that heart-led impulse says, I would really like to take 5 minutes right now and sit in the sun. Do it. It's enough, it's enough. So I recommend making a list, or contemplating, or making a voice recording, or just speaking to someone about the things that bring you joy, right? And then let those things lead you, right? And it might be a big gesture. So I know, for instance, in my life right now, I'm working toward getting a horse. So Aura, I got the cat, a while ago. And then I've known since I was 3 years old that I was meant to have a horse, and I've never had one. I've just been riding, other people's horses my whole life. And I feel more and more like my life is orienting toward that. And I'm really listening, because I think that the introduction of a being like a horse into my life will create an entirely new experience for me of joy. I've always felt joy with them. It would create a new rhythm. It would create a new way of communion. It would create a whole, it feels like this whole expansive space, right? And that's not usually a practical thing, right? To do that. But the experience of it is something my deep inner being has been calling for. So these are just some examples, right? Just some examples. If you're choosing between a kind of something that's kind of boring, like maybe you're buying a journal or something, you're choosing something that's kind of boring and something that really lights you up. Let yourself go for the thing that lights you up, right? These are just some examples. Take a walk somewhere beautiful, smell a flower. It could be really simple. Whatever it is that brings you joy, write it down and start allowing space for those things to speak to you. And just see what happens. This is just a fun practice. Just try it. Because remember, we're coming back to my joy is essential, right? Maybe the thing that brings you joy is to have an ecstatic hour of alone time where you get to just read a book and eat chocolate and not answer to anyone, right? What if that is essential for you? Not frivolous, not self-indulgent, not something that you shouldn't do because it's impractical. What if that is actually essential to your well-being, right? What would shift in you if you began to hold your joy in that way, and the things that bring you joy, the actions, the experiences that bring you joy? What if you began to hold it in a way that's essential? And as always, what happens is, in the most miraculous ways, circumstances start to conspire in your favor. This is something I've noticed again and again. Creative solutions that you could have never thought of on your own begin to present themselves, right? Pathways begin to open up. It's just that first step. Once you start thinking about the things that bring you joy, once you start claiming that as essential, miracles really do start to open in your world. So this is an invitation for you to claim your joy as essential. And for me, one of the things I discovered was essential is when the heart leads. And so we are back, baby. We are back. It's so good to be back with you. So, all right, I'll leave you with that. Please do feel free to tune in either next week or the week after, but I'll be tuning in again with our second principle of joy. So hold that one, work with it, let it work with you, start claiming it as essential. And when we tune in again, you'll get the second principle. So stay tuned for that. All right, we'll connect soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful time until I see you again.